Welcome to Just Jen, the podcast. Today it's Just Jen and David Madden. David is a veteran entertainment executive whose career has shaped the movies and shows that we all know and love, and whose insight and guidance have also shaped my own journey. As the studio executive behind acclaimed and Oscar-winning films like Children of a Lesser God, Fatal Attraction, and The Accused, and as a producer of box office hits like Runaway Bride, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and Save the Last Dance, David has built a career championing stories that define generations. David went on to lead as president at Fox and AMC, overseeing groundbreaking series like The Americans, Better Call Saul, Empire, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and The Walking Dead. Along the way, he earned a Primetime Emmy Award for HBO's Something the Lord Made. Now, as president of Webtoon Productions, David's bringing some of the world's most popular digital stories to screens everywhere. Wattpad and Webtoon titles / franchises, like The Kissing Booth, After, and Through My Window, have already proven the global power of these platforms. And under David's leadership, upcoming Webtoon adaptations are expanding that momentum across Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, and beyond. We dive into what makes a story resonate, where entertainment is heading, and what he's learned from decades of shaping culture. Hey David, thank you so much for doing my show with me today and talking more about your background and your journey so far. So thanks for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
My pleasure, Jenna. Look forward to it.
You have a huge career in entertainment. Oh my gosh. The first question I'm going to ask you is just like, how did you get into entertainment at all? Was anyone in your family in it? Where did it come from? And kind of what was your origins into getting into it?
Well, my dad actually was a director. You've never heard of him. Nobody listening to this podcast has ever heard of him. But he was making kind of industrial films when we were living in the Midwest, which is where I originally grew up, like for car companies, like here's the new Chevrolet, here's the new Camaro. And we moved to LA when I was 12 because he wanted to get into entertainment. And he directed half a dozen movies that you've never heard of and some TV shows, but never really broke in the way he hoped to. But it exposed me to the industry. And when I was in school, in college, like I acted, but only in a desperate effort to meet girls. Why else if you're a straight guy? Yeah. And I was writing and directing plays. When I graduated school, I thought I was going to be a writer. And I started out, originally I wrote a novel, my effort at the Great American Novel, but it was American, but not great. It was kind of horrible.
Okay, still, yeah.
And then I started writing scripts because I was living here. And I was trying to support myself and read an article in the LA Times that said that studios hired people called readers, which I knew how to read. So I've been reading for years. So people who would kind of read scripts and write up coverage, write up kind of synopses. And so I ran around and after a few months got a job doing that. So I was reading scripts at night and writing them by day, reverse. Writing by day, reading at night. And did that for a while, and then I got offered a junior executive job. This was at Fox, and my first reaction was, "No, I'm an artist. I'm not a suit. I don't want to be one of those people." Yeah. And my second reaction was, "Well, if I'm being really honest with myself, as a writer, I'm okay, but I'm kind of mediocre. I've read many scripts that were better than what I knew was better than what I was writing, and in the same time, I was sort of gotten curious about." Gee, how did that movie actually get made? Why this movie and that movie, and what was that process like? And I got kind of intrigued by the whole how studios work. So I took this executive job, and then that was my path after that.
Okay, amazing. So did you say you moved to LA when you were like 12? So you grew up. Okay, so you grew up in LA for a while. You've been in LA for a long time.
I grew up in Pacific Palisades, which used to be a place.
Oh, wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then out of curiosity, like what high school did you go to?
Valley High.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're super LA. I didn't realize that. What was like that? You kind of mentioned it a little bit, like you were writing and you thought you'd be a writer first.
Yeah.
Like that was your first thing. And you kind of said you realized like, oh, maybe I don't write as well as like these things that I'm reading. But was that like a hard decision to transfer over or not really? It was, yeah.
No, it was super hard because that's what I thought I was. And periodically, not so much recently, but at different phases of my life, I would write something every now and then, just sort of to keep that muscle going.
Yeah.
Not even because I thought I was going to sell it, but just because I think writing is great therapy. Like you kind of realize what's going on in your head that you didn't even know was there until you read it and said, "Oh, I wrote that. Oh, that's so weird." But I wrote a second novel much later when I was between marriages. But you kind of learn what you're good at, I think, if you have time. And later on, kind of many years later, I directed 2 movies, which taught me that I was also a very mediocre director. But I thought, without meaning to sound presumptuous, like I'm pretty good at what I do now. Like I learned I was pretty good as a producer and as executive.
Yeah, so cool.
Kind of, but it's hard. Like you imagine, I thought I was going to be the next Tarantino or the next whatever,
it's so interesting that. Yeah, totally. And I think it's probably really hard. It is hard for a lot of people to let go of that and like realize something else. Yeah. But it sounds like though you had the something else kind of organically happen in a way. Like it sounds like you knew you were good at that and enjoyed it, right?
Well,
or was it like a longer process?
I think most people's careers, there are exceptions. Most people's careers are kind of accidental. You're like, this is the path I'm heading down. Oh wait, this other door opened.
Interesting. I love that.
I think I don't know. I think the key to me to being successful is to look at that open door really hard.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, no, I'm planning to do this, but that other thing is over there. Mostly when I've gone through that other door, it's worked out to be better than I expected it to be. So
I love that you're saying that. It's like the quote, "Man plans and God laughs," a little bit, but yeah, totally. No, but it's a good reminder to people because sometimes we are very driven and want like a very specific thing. But with that, you don't want to be too closed-minded or narrow-minded and let it be like, this is the thing my eye is on, but I remain open and flexible because otherwise you won't see those open doors maybe, or like you won't give them any credit, to like think, oh, maybe that's a path. Explain a little bit like Wattpad and Webtoon Studios and the format, because it is amazing. It's really, because you have had a huge career in traditional TV and traditional media, and all of these from The Americans and The Shield, all these shows, which were huge successes. And now this is a very different structure and format of IP and coming from like fan-based media and writing. You would explain it much better. Explain like what it is exactly. And start from there and then we'll go.
All right. Well, I'll back up a little bit just even to give you a little more context. So before this, I was working for a guy named Greg Berlanti and running the TV side for his company, and that was very active. But that situation came to an end amicably, but came to an end, and I was trying to figure out something else to do. And I was at first looking for sort of a more traditional job with a more traditional kind of company, but there wasn't really anything out there. And so I was starting to try to make a producer deal for myself, what they call in television a pod deal at a studio. But it was like starting my own company by myself, and I'm negotiating this deal, but I'm thinking about it and I'm saying, I don't want to do this. I mean, all anybody wants is IP, intellectual property. All anybody wants is recognizable titles. And how am I going to get that? And who's going to give it to me? And there are 5 million people who call themselves producers, and just sounded like a lame thing to do. And so I was negotiating, was kind of ducking my lawyer's call because I didn't want to. And a headhunter, an executive recruiter, called me, and he said, "Have you ever heard of Wattpad Webtoon Studios?" And I said to him, "I know the third word. I don't know those other 2 words you said. I don't know what they mean." And he said, "No, it's this tech company, and they have all this IP and all this stuff, and you should meet them." And so, sure, fine, meet somebody. And everybody I met, I liked, and I decided to sign up. So to your question, sorry.
No, that's much better context.
So for the outside world, there are two separate platforms, Wattpad and Webtoon. Wattpad is about 25 years old, born in Toronto, has become the world's largest platform for online novels in the world. And the basic idea is simple. Anybody on planet Earth, you do have to be on planet Earth, that is a requirement, but if you are, you can put your story on Wattpad. It's what's called user-generated content. That means however you type it in is how it goes on the platform. It's free to read and it's free to put your story on. People usually put a chapter on once a week until their story is done.
Okay, yeah.
It started really as kind of fan fiction and YA, and mostly for people in their teens to use it. But now it's a lot of people from all sorts of age groups use it. It's every single language on the planet is represented on Wattpad.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Like every country. Yeah. We don't know exactly how many stories are on Wattpad, but somewhere between 50 and 60 million.
Wow. So cool.
People are uploading every day. And the platform is sort of like, probably most things are only read by somebody's grandmother. But stories accumulate a fan base in a very kind of Netflixy algorithmic way. So every story is very heavily tagged. And so if you went on the platform today and you said, I want to read a story about a podcaster in Finland who likes soccer and is a vampire. You would type that in. Here are the top 10 stories about a podcaster who's in Finland and is a vampire and plays soccer or whatever. And if you like that story, your likes would go into the algorithm. And so the stories get recommended to you by whatever genre or subgenre you're looking at. So stories can accumulate a lot of what we call reads. Somebody has read a chapter. It does not mean somebody's read the whole thing start to finish.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Tens of millions, hundreds of millions, sometimes into the billions of reads. And have really big fan bases. So that's essentially Wattpad. Webtoon, other side of the world, born in Korea, also about 25 years old. Webtoon is the world's biggest platform for online graphic novels and comics in the world. There are, between the two platforms, we reach about 160 million people as terms of average monthly users. And anybody who's an average monthly user is usually on the platform at least half an hour a day. So we get a lot of interaction.
Engagement,
Webtoon's built for this. It's built for your phone. It's vertical scroll. That's my daughter. So it's all, again, people put a chapter on once a week until something's done. Webtoon actually is unlike Wattpad. It is curated, meaning that there are people who pick what goes on the platform. There are people who give notes. Yay, notes. We all love notes. We actually invest money in a lot of the things that go on the platform because it takes some level of technology to make something kind of fit on that phone space. There are like thousands of things on Webtoon as opposed to the tens of millions that are on Wattpad, but still a lot. In the past, people had producers would come and option things from Wattpad or Webtoon and turn them into movies or shows. So there was a movie called The Kissing Booth that was on Netflix that had sequels. That was a Wattpad story. There's a movie called After, which had 4 sequels.
Yes, I read it. After series.
There's a show called My Life with the Walter Boys, which was a Wattpad story. There's a show on Netflix called Heartstopper, which is a queer love story made out of the UK. That's a Webtoon. There's a lot of animation on Netflix and other places that comes out of Webtoon. So the companies, I'm almost done.
It's perfect. No, it's good. I'm learning. I like it.
Okay. So about 4 years ago, the companies merged. Webtoon actually had deeper pockets. So they bought Wattpad. So after the merger, they said, well, instead of waiting for producers to come to us, why don't we hire some people and kind of try to generate stories ourselves, and maybe we can get some movies and shows made. So ergo, they called me, and now about almost 3 years ago, and I inherited some people and hired some people. Cut to present day. In LA, we have a group, 9 of us. We have a film group, we have a TV group, we have an animation group, a lot of stuff in the animation space. We're very international, and I won't bore this group with it, but we basically are making 7 or 8 shows in Southeast Asia. So I have a person in Manila.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool.
In Europe, we're making 3 movies in Spain this year, a series in Spain, 2 movies in Italy, and 1 movie in Germany this year. And a person in Madrid who kind of operates and covers that turf. And then here in LA, we are basically trying to get as many things done as we can on all those genres. We have no deal with any studio or network or platform, so we're independent. We can set things up if we can, and we have lots of things that we partnered on with very fancy people like Lucky Chap, which is Margot Robbie's company, or Imagine, or Vertigo, or lots of places and things like we haven't announced yet. But now I'm rambling. But you can stop me anytime you want. But we made a movie last summer for Tubi called Sideline, the Cutie and Me, which shockingly did not win any Oscars, but it was a very charming kind of rom-com. And when it launched on Tubi on Thanksgiving, it kind of blew their doors off. They'd never seen numbers like that in terms of people watching it. So
incredible.
They ordered a sequel, and we just finished shooting the sequel on last Tuesday, a couple of days ago. Got to be on set. We're shooting live
amazing.
in LA.
Cool.
Then I think we'll make another 2 or 3 things this year at various places. So anyway, that's what Wattpad and Webtoon are.
That's so cool. Okay, I have a few questions. One of them is you mentioned, so when they brought you on, the transition there for them is like, what were they doing? It sounds like essentially they were before using like external producers and stuff, and then made like an in-house team. Is that kind of the transition there?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Yeah.
Producers before people would come to them and call and say, "Hey, are the rights available to such and such?" And,
I see.
And they would help facilitate that. But there was nobody inside the company who was initiating like, oh, this could be a good movie. Let's
got it. Okay, so you're a production company.
Yeah, we're producers. Yeah, we call ourselves a studio. That's really not true. I don't love that we call ourselves that. We're really a production company.
How do you decide what stories to get made? It's a tricky question, but like obviously there's some element within, and then also for people listening that these are both apps on the phone, which you mentioned, but they're actually apps that anyone can download right now. And see what's going on. So from there's obviously an element to that that's data driven. If it's very popular, story's getting a lot of engagement. What determines whether a story is worth investing in or not?
No, it's a good question. Well, as you already alluded to, data is an important part of it. So, for example, on the Wattpad side, we kind of use a threshold where if something has 100,000 reads, and remember, means somebody's read a chapter, not the whole thing. But if it gets to that number, that's kind of the threshold where we say, oh, there's some momentum behind this. There's a wave, so it's worth checking out. On the Wattpad side, there's a cluster of they're called something different, but they're essentially book scouts who read stuff first, and then anything they think could remotely be a movie, a show, an animated thing, they send to us, and then we read all that stuff. But past that, there are a lot of titles that are on either platform that may be really, really good as either Wattpad stories or webtoons, but just aren't movies or aren't shows.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
And then there are things that are where the metrics are not great,
like not as good on the apps.
So it's a combination of data and that very old-fashioned thing called personal instinct. But like I said, there are 9 of us in LA, so we all read a lot, we all talk a lot, we all sort of debate what could something be, and sometimes there's like a could this be for animation or could it be for live action? Or
interesting, of course.
So the 3 groups can all sort of advocate, and then I have the luxury and the sometimes annoying responsibility of making a decision of where it should go.
Okay. So then what is the process from there? So say we have a story that you've decided, okay, we're going to pursue this one. What's the process? What happens?
Well, so just because something is on our platform does not mean we own the rights. Because like in the case of...
interesting. Okay.
Because especially with Wattpad, where we're not paying for these stories, they're free, like I said, they're free to use, free to read, but the authors retain all the rights. So, and the same is basically true in Webtoon, although, like I think I mentioned, we do invest a little money in the Webtoon stuff, but still the rights stay with the author. So if we like something, first thing we do is reach out to the author and try to make a deal.
Right.
And mostly we can. I would say 90% of the time we can. Sometimes a creator either wants complete creative control, which doesn't really work in the movie, or they may want more money than we think we can afford to guarantee somebody or whatever. So sometimes we can't, but mostly we can. Assuming we can make a deal with the author, then usually the first thing we do is try to say, who can we partner with that will make this just something that people feel, I got to buy this. And sometimes that's another producing partner. Sometimes that's a filmmaker. Sometimes that's an actor. Sometimes that's just a writer. Sometimes we just go to look for a writer first. If it's an animation, sometimes we'll look for an animation studio who will give us more credibility. So usually we just try to find that partner. And if the partner is not a writer, then together with that partner, we'll try to find a writer and come up with an approach, and then we'll go pitch it. But with the idea that sort of, it's sadly really hard to pitch a network or a platform on a purely original idea, which is not the way it used to be, but it is sort of now, because people want something that feels like there's already an existing audience, like it's already pre-sold. Yeah. So we can say all that. So when we're pitching to people.
Yeah. So I would say, like, doesn't that help? Like, this has this much engagement on our platform. Yeah. Okay.
It does help a lot. I mean, nothing is a guarantee, but it certainly gets you in the door. And the other thing we say, which is actually true, is that we're not just a place that has a lot of stories, but people, like I said, are on our platforms kind of daily, weekly, monthly at least. So we can say to people, oh, here's this movie, and we've sold it to Netflix, or it's going to star Jenna, or it's going to be on the air in May, or whatever. So we can market to people. So we are actually, the people who read the book, we can reach them and tell them what's happening and get them excited about an upcoming movie or a show. So I think the platforms, at every company, even if they're a 20th century company, they're data driven at this point. Everybody looks at that stuff. So I think the fact that totally sort of a complementary marketing engine as well as a repository of IP is important. So it's a combination of sort of the old-fashioned way that people have tried to make stories forever, mixed with this other sort of data-oriented, like, look what we can do to actually help you make your thing a hit.
Yeah, I think it's so incredible how, like, the structure, and it's amazing because it's like the story came from you guys. It came from someone on the app, and then you're creating it and you have the audience right there. It's so cool. Yeah. I think it's a really, it's like, are there other companies that operate that are structured like this, or?
I'm sure there are.
I hadn't heard of any before. You guys.
I think everybody's sort of looking for some version of IP that's not traditional. Yeah. So obviously, we've been in a moment for some number of years where video games are a really good platform. Minecraft is obviously a great example, as is Last of Us and various other things. So that's another angle. Although, and obviously traditional books are still can be valuable in terms of launching something. Really, the one asset we have that's different is the fact that people are on our platforms every day. Like you're not probably on, even if you buy books at Barnes and Noble, you probably aren't on the Barnes and Noble app every day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And if you buy a video game, you may not be on that video makers, but you're on our site because you're waiting to read the next chapter of something you're reading. Or you're cruising to see what you want to read next. Yeah,
completely. Because it's the kind of thing where it emulates the structure of episodic, where there's a new episode each week, but you're reading it, which is amazing. Yeah. And people read it fully on their phone, right? I mean, like, it's all on the phone.
Webtoon is on the phone. I mean, you can read it on your laptop or some other way.
Oh, you can.
Okay. But when I started the company, for example, Webtoon, I started reading on my laptop because that's how I read. But I got trained to read on my phone, and it's more fun on the phone because it's like I said, it's vertical scrolling, so things are coming up. So, like, especially if something's meant to be scary and you see something creepy sort of kind of coming up at you like that, that can be cool. We actually now, for our most successful titles on both platforms, we publish them in hardcover and softcover and traditional books.
I didn't know that.
So if you went into the Grove and Barnes and Noble, you'd see a bunch of our books in various places. So we try to find the audience wherever they're finding.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there a big process of, like, editing or, like, with the writer? So say something's doing well, does it usually stay as is? Or obviously to adapt to a screenplay, it changes a lot. But is that like a big process of, like, does there ever conflict from that? Like the writer who maybe doesn't necessarily have so much experience, maybe they do, I don't know. But then you're making a deal with them and they're like, oh, I want to, like, creative control. Like, I see it like this. But it's, like, not working that way. Is that
It's a good question.
challenge?
So both in traditional publishing and in our world,
Oh yeah, that's
the
true.
authors don't have creative control in terms of how
Yeah.
something is going to be turned into a movie or a show. I mean, if they try, I mean, like famously Stephen King, when he options his books, he only charges $1 to option his book, but he has final creative approval, which he can get away with because he's Stephen King. And he's also famously is basically very open about giving approvals to things, and he doesn't really screw things up. But that's really the only exception I can remember if an author has true creative control. So usually, usually authors mostly know that a movie is different than a webtoon or is different than a Wattpad story. It's going to go its own way, and books can obviously do different things than movies can do. Books can put you inside somebody's head. Movies cannot really put you inside somebody's head. So everything is externalized in a movie or show in a way that a book can be much more interior. So they are different forms and they require different things. And especially a series that you want to go on for multiple seasons just needs to have a lot more directions for story than certainly books have. I mean, webtoons, which may go on, may have a kind of more span of story. So things have to change, but when I was at AMC and I was working on The Walking Dead, and Robert Kirkman was both the creator of the Walking Dead comic, but it was also one of the executive producers of the show. The show did sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, different things than the comic did, and Robert was the first person to say, "Hey, the show has to have its own life, has to have its own."
It totally makes sense.
And Game of Thrones ultimately went past where the book went because it hadn't finished yet, and they kind of went their own direction. And I think people sort of know that you have to stay true to the spirit, and you have to
but that's part of it, right?
And the themes and the essence of the characters, but the specifics of how you plot it probably will have to change just because it's a different form.
Yeah, no, of course. And you're right. I guess it's always been like, it changes. It has to, because it's taking on a new life, a new medium.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a situation where like you are really passionate about creating something, but like no one else sees the potential or something, and you're
all the time. I mean, no, it's most things you work on don't happen, and sometimes you get heartbroken because you really love something so much, and everybody else looked at you like you were nuts, or but I mean, you asked me that question. What I think of is when I was a kid, I spent summers living with my grandparents in Chicago, and my grandfather worshipped Abraham Lincoln. And there was a room of our house, of his house, that was solely devoted to things about Lincoln, all these books and paraphernalia. And he took me to see, he drove me out, I remember, to see where Lincoln grew up, and any building that had anything to do with Lincoln, he would take me to. And so when I became a movie person, one thing I really wanted to do is tell the Abraham Lincoln story. And I developed a script with an Academy Award-winning writer, and we flirted with different actors and different directors. But at the end of the day, I could never get everybody on the same page. I could never get it done. Later, Steven Spielberg did his movie about Lincoln with Daniel Lewis.
I was thinking that. I was like, is that it?
And so I was like simultaneously thrilled it got made so well and so beautifully, and frustrated that I wasn't like part of it. So that was both my vindication and my like, fuck, I didn't get that to happen. So that thing happens all the time. And then, a lot of things you work on and the script doesn't come out the way you hoped it would come out, or you feel like you're on the path to making something at a particular place or platform, and you sold it to some particular executive who championed it, and then executive gets fired or leaves, and then
my God, what happens with that then? It's just right.
Well, I mean, sometimes things get resurrected, sometimes things have third or fourth lives, and mathematically the odds are most things die. Most things don't happen. You just if you do this particular job, you have to be accustomed to a lot of heartbreak.
You were trying to tell Lincoln's story before, like sometime before that happened. Do you think it's like the market isn't right, or like or like you can never really speak to it, but it's just like, I don't know. It's interesting.
No, look,
you can't really, yeah.
I think if I'm not answering your question the way you want to ask it, tell me. But what I took away is, I think the frustrating thing right now is that it's really hard to sell original stories. And I think everybody wants a title. Everybody wants, and to a certain extent, in this job, I'm trying to take advantage of that desire by having titles that people recognize. But there was a time where it was easier for you to come up with some story that maybe came out of your real life or people you knew or whatever. You extrapolated on it, and you could walk in with a producer and pitch that, and somebody would buy it. And it's just really hard to do that now. It's companies, platforms, networks are very conservative in what they want to buy. It's been a rough several years for entertainment companies between COVID and strikes and even on a different level, the fires of this year and the general entertainment economy, which kind of sucks. With all that stuff, people are very conservative, very like they want a sure thing, whatever that means. There is no such thing as a sure thing, but there's the illusion.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So, so I think the market is very conservative right now, has been for a bit. That's frustrating, but it's also just reality. And, you can get mad at the world and say the world must change, but it probably won't do you a lot of good. Or you can say, okay, well, this is the world within it. So how do I, within those parameters, how do I find things that feel really creatively stimulating and feel like they have the sort of sense of originality, even if they're not necessarily coming out of kind of, I mean, Jenna, you write, you write stuff that you probably personally care about, and when you would hope writers always can write things they care about, whether they came out of their head or not, as opposed to saying, well, I don't really give a shit about this, but it's a job, or it's just somebody will pay me, or somebody will buy it. So I think that's the hard part, and I think it's probably the quest of any good writer or any good filmmaker or even any good producer to just try to find things that have all of the meaning and all of the heart of something that comes from within, even if it's packaged in something that has a more immediate commercial obviousness to it.
Yeah. And that's possible. That's a great answer.
No, I think it's possible, but it's
totally.
But it's a challenge.
Right, it is. So you've touched on this a little bit, but it sounds like a big difference, because you've been in the industry for a while and you've been on many different facets of it. It sounds like a big difference that you've noticed over time is the market's become a lot more conservative and data driven. Like you need an audience, you need data and an audience to be like, this is already successful on this level, that's why we should make it. Is there anything else in terms of trends or in terms of where you see the whole industry going, or where it's already gone compared to the past? Or maybe even like advice that once was good advice, but you wouldn't say is good advice now?
No, that's a good question. I think on the television side, I guess you can call it a trend. I think that there's much more sense of shows being made for a quote reasonable price as opposed to being wildly expensive. So I think there are the outliers, but in general, the days of making shows at $15 million, $20 million an episode or more, that's harder and harder to get away with. I think people want fiscal responsibility, which means people want therefore shows that are not necessarily gigantic world building shows, but feel like they're more present day. They're more they're more contained in terms of it. There are. I think there's another trend that's been interesting is that that streaming platforms are frequently looking for shows that sort of feel like broadcast shows, but a little different. For example, if not the most, one of the most successful shows on Max right now is The Pit, which is John Wells' version of ER with Noah Wiley, and and it's a classic medical show. It's a little edgier than probably would be the case on broadcast, but it kind of feels like a broadcast show, and it's doing really well. And I think there's shows like Poker Face on Peacock, and there's a new medical show on Netflix called Pulse. There's shows that feel a little more broadcast, a little more like an old fashioned even show that could have been on USA or some network like that in 15 years ago. So I think that's one thing. There's been a little bit of vogue for political thriller, whether that be Paradise on Hulu or Zero Day, the Robert De Niro show that was on Netflix, The Diplomat with Kerry Russell, or I think people are kind of interested in that. There's much more interest now in ongoing series that can continue for multiple years, as opposed to the limited series that is just the one season true story.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The limited series still gets made, but I think people are recognizing that for all the effort that goes into making one season of a show, not just at a production level, but a marketing level, for it to be just one season and done is economically not the greatest thing in the world. So there's more interest in ongoing seasons. Comedy is hard. Obviously people will always love comedy. It's been around since the ancient Greeks. There's not much of it on broadcast anymore. And, the comedy that's on streaming tends to be things that kind of walk the edge of, is this comedy or is it drama? Okay, but
interesting.
But like the old fashioned sort of 5 jokes a page comedy is not around as much.
Why is that? Or if you can speak to it, or you don't know. Okay, interesting.
I wish I could answer that, because it's a great form, and I think there are 3 basic reasons people watch things: to laugh, to cry, or to be scared. And laughing is great. But and when there's a good I don't know that it's being watched massively outside of LA and New York, but The Studio, which is Seth Rogen's show, it was really funny to me. I live in the world. Jury Duty, I thought, was a brilliant comedy. That kind of straddled scripted and reality in an incredibly clever way. And Abbott Elementary is a very witty comedy that's on broadcast and is and is critically recognized. But there isn't as much out there as there should be. And so I hope there's more world for comedy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, and then what advice would you give to creatives today? So on the creative side, maybe actors, writers, and then you can also answer, if you want, someone who wants to go on your path as an executive or producer side.
Well, I guess for a writer, look, if you read a lot of the online trades, you get nervous because you can see that there are fewer shows being made and there are fewer jobs out there, and you can see the statistics that are coming out of the Writers Guild, and it's just been a bit of a shrinkage. Some of the things that were gained in the writer's strike of 23 served to hike individual salaries, but compress the number of jobs. So I think it's a little bit daunting, but I also truly think there's always a hunger for new voices, always a hunger for new stories and new perspectives. A writer can always write. You can always write specs. People will always want to read them. It's just going to be harder than it was 10 years ago. If writing is what you love, then you have to do it. And new voices, new people are being found all the time, and we're certainly hiring a bunch of writers who are sort of very early in their careers, but are getting opportunities. And so I think it just takes perseverance. I know that sounds like a day, but that's I think probably the best thing that I can say. And then look, I think in terms of people who are trying to get into the industry on executive front, the world, I think, has changed a bit in terms of that as well. There used to be that every platform and network had lots and lots of production company deals, lots of pod deals, and therefore lots of development executive opportunities. And to some extent, that's shrunk a bit over the last couple of years. And there are a lot of people who are competing for a relatively small number of open jobs. So that is a bit harder. But, I do think while we're currently in a period of contraction, and I think that if you read, again, a lot of the online trades, there's all sorts of speculation of, will Comcast buy Paramount, or will Apple buy Disney, or will this company, and the potential for further contraction. But At the same time, there are all sorts of new companies that are trying to tell new stories in different ways. I think ours is one of them. And
Totally.
So it's sort of what I was saying sort of at the beginning of our conversation. I think you have to be available for the open door. I mean, I was not expecting to get that call from a recruiter saying, come join Wattpad Webtoon Studios. And you may get a call from a company that seems a little sideways from your expectation if you had your heart set on working for Netflix or Apple. But be open to that. When you are somebody who's really good at story, when you're somebody who really can connect with writers, when you're somebody who can really both have a point of view and express it in an expressive and constructive way, that's a valuable skill that a lot of people who currently have those jobs don't necessarily have that skill. And if you can cultivate that, people will want to work with you, and you'll have a reputation, and that reputation will spread, and it will lead to other opportunities. The one skill, I'll repeat myself, that I think really matters having a career that's anything vaguely like mine is just being able to hear a story or read a story and have a point of view about what you would make it better. And you're not always going to be right, but if you can sort of be good at diagnosing problems, saying, this was working up until here, and then I lost it there, or you're telling the story from this person's point of view. What if you told it from her point of view?
Interesting.
Or what if where are you? The scene on page 15. What was that? What if that scene was the first scene? Or what if this instead of killing off that character, what if that character wasn't killed off? If you can, the things about movie and television storytelling is that it's elastic, that you can play with it, that you can, nothing is locked in stone. So the ability to look at a story and just play and let your go where like, oh, I really wanted to be with her, I really wanted to be with him, or I think that's a skill. Whether you're a writer, whether you're a filmmaker, whether you're a producer, that's making stories better, making them more emotional. Stories are, they're not intellectual, they're emotional. They're meant to make you feel. And what about a story makes you feel something? What about a story stops you from feeling something? And being able to analyze that and be able to
identify
and explain it to either a writer or to somebody else you're working with. That's I think the key to being good at this.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I have another question. How do you know? I often think about this as like a writer, but in many ways. But how do you know when something is done? Speaking about how you can continually play with something, right? You can play with, okay, well, what if I change the structure to this, or what if this happened, or what if, like infinite things can change. How do you? Is it like? Would you say that's like a feeling, or is it like literally has to be done because it's a deadline?
Well, no, I mean, the smartest answer is you may never be done, because somebody
I've heard that.
Gets shot and it's a different thing, gets edited, it's a different thing. But the better answer, I think, to your question is, look, I think if you're going to be a writer, you need a small group of people around you whose opinions you really trust. And somebody gives you an opinion, it's perfectly fine to say, you know what, they're wrong, I don't agree with that. But there's also the theory of like, if 6 people tell you you're drunk, you're probably drunk, even if you don't think you are. So I think that if you have a group of people maybe not having the same solution, but all having the same problem, then you're probably not done yet. Then you're probably not. I think listening for people's problems and trying to understand why they're not responding the way you think they should is important. Look, when you're a writer and you've written something on your own, and even if you've gotten feedback from people you trust and you feel like you're done, you're probably going to send it out into the world, or you're going to send it out to producers or executives or agents, or whoever you're sending it to, and you're going to get a whole other level of feedback. And then you're going to have to decide out of that what is valuable and what's not. And that's tricky because you on the one hand, you just don't want to take everybody's notes and try to rewrite what everybody thinks and lose your sense of how you wrote the thing in the first place. But on the other hand, like I said, if you're hearing a commonality of problems, everybody's bumping an X character or everybody's bumping an X moment.
No one's understanding this thing.
Then there's probably a genuine problem there. So so it's being passionate but not stubborn.
That's a good way to say it.
Tricky. What's the difference between those two is kind of subjective, but that's kind of what you have to aim for.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good phrase. Passionate but not stubborn. Yeah, it's true. I can see that. I'm going to ask you just a few random questions, okay?
Sure. Go.
Okay. If you were a professional athlete, what sport would you play? And why?
I was never even remotely close to being but if I had the skill set, I would probably want to be a shooting guard.
A shooting guard? Oh, what's for? Okay, cool. Do you have any reason or just?
If you know, you know what I'm talking about.
I know about some others. Almost like I thought maybe you'd be like, just say something like soccer or football, but you started with the position. Okay, what's your horoscope and does that mean anything to you? Do you know what your horoscope is? I mean, your horoscope sign. Like
I'm a Leo, but I am not an expert on horoscopes.
Okay, fine. Do you have any irrational things that you hate, like slow walkers or like certain sounds or like...
Would you say certain songs or what?
Sounds, like certain sounds or like anything.
I hate Billy Joel.
Okay. Hot take.
I can be like when I'm driving, I can be a road rage person. Like I can get mad at people who really don't.
I don't imagine that. Yeah.
But that's what occurs to me.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I thought it was so insightful. Yeah, you're amazing. It was such a cool conversation and like learning more about the intricacy of what you do in your day to day. And it's amazing. So cool.
I had fun. I appreciate the time.
That's it for this episode of Just Jen. If you laughed, cried, or accidentally learned something, please follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And if you have anything nice to say, then please leave a review. You can follow me everywhere at Just Jen. Sign up for the newsletter. And if you've got a burning question or a weird life situation, you can even ask Jen. All the links are in the show's description. I'm your host, Jenna Malatsky, and this episode was edited by Jacob Mauman. I appreciate you listening to this episode.